My name is Charlene Mitchell-Rodgers. I'm the president of Media Consultants, which is a full-service advertising, public relations, and marketing firm. And I'm also a talk show host on 910 AM Superstation. My show airs every Thursday night. It's called Mind Your Business.
All right, so how did you get into this?
How did I get into
Media relations, public relations, radio?
I have a master's degree in radio, TV, film. And I'm one of the early pioneers, I guess you could say, for women of color. I'm from Toledo, Ohio. I went to Fisk University, HBCU school, got my master's from Bowling Green in radio, TV, film, and my first job was in Toledo at Channel 11, which was a CBS station at that time, and they had never had a black woman on TV, and neither had the other stations. I was the first one in my hometown. How about that? So it made the front page of the Toledo Blade. That's how big of a deal it was back then. Thank God we've passed that. It's not a big deal anymore.
All right, so with that, and you're in the city of Detroit now, and there's so much happening when you think about culture in Detroit and media and so many personalities. Let's talk a little bit about what brought you here to this city.
Well, backtracking, born and raised Toledo, left to go to college. First job in media was in Toledo, but then I went to Baltimore. Talent Scout saw me doing a promo. He was in Toledo looking for talent. And I was doing, in fact, I was reciting a Langston Hughes poem, in the middle of a black neighborhood, and we were talking about the lack of, black businesses, and here's the only street, blah, blah, blah. So we're talking about the same stuff today, unfortunately. But he saw that, and he called me and offered me a job to go to Baltimore, and I took it. I talked it over with my parents, and my dad said, girl, go, It was, I was only making $125 a week, and I think after 2 raises, I was at $145 a week. But back then, things were cheap. I had a new car, and I had a furnished apartment, and I was dressing nice and everything, eating out. So I don't know how I was living on that money, but I did. So I took a job and went to Baltimore, and during that time, great place to work, really good news town. I worked at WBAL. And it was a Hearst-owned station, Hearst Broadcasting. Hearst at that time, that's when Patty Hearst got in all the trouble with the Symbionese Liberation Army. I was working there then. And Oprah Winfrey was working at the station right next door on Television Hill. We became friends during that time because she was dating a guy at my station. So got to know Oprah, stayed in Baltimore about a year and a half. And then, again, a news director saw me from the Washington, D.C. market, offered me a job there. I anchored the morning news, early morning news there, and I had a TV show, I can't even remember what the name of it, and I was a reporter, and I won my first Emmy there. And it was interviewing a black female police officer who had been sexually harassed, and the guy asked her if she would pose nude with her holster and her cap and all of this kind of thing, and she reported him, and they tried to push it under the rug, and I persisted, and then after the story got really good, they put a couple more people on the team with me so they could share in the Emmy. A couple of white guys, had to share it with me, but that was a great place. I got to cover stories at the White House and all that. So then I went to Boston, and I worked in Boston really for the bulk of my television career. I was there for 7 years or so, and really had a very good stint. Boston was different. Like you say, Detroit is different. Boston's real different. I went there at the height of the busing controversy, and I covered a lot of controversial stories, but eventually I went into health and medical reporting, and I won an Emmy for that, individual Emmy, my first big statue that I got to keep. So, and then I won another one later. So that was good. So I've had a very successful career in broadcasting. Then I came to Detroit. I wanted to be closer to family in Toledo, but certainly I didn't want to go back to Toledo. It's a small market. Lo and behold, God is good. I got a call from a news director at Channel 2. They were not Fox at that time. Fox did not exist. It was WJBK Store Broadcasting. And he flew me in. I interviewed. I accepted the job, and I worked at Channel 2 for a little over a year. And my contract was coming up, and Channel 7 called me, WXYZ. Said, how long's your contract? I said, well, it's coming up. He said, well, we'd like you to come over here. Well, I'm working at a third place station, and they're a strong number one. Bill Bonds was on at that time, and Dinah Lewis and a whole slew of characters that made the station number one. So I was really excited about that. And I thought I could use it as leverage. So I went and told my news director, I said, well, can I get a little meeting with you real quick? He said, what's up? I said, well, Channel 7 called and offered me a job. I thought, I better let you know about it. Since my contract's coming up, we could talk about it. He says, you probably should take it. I'm like, okay. Guess they didn't try to keep me because they knew they couldn't pay that Channel 7 money. So, again, good career. While I was at Channel 7, I knew that I wanted to do some PR and marketing. Because I went through a divorce and I had a young child, and my hours at the TV station were just atrocious. I mean, I missed one of his birthday parties. I got home, my mother was conducting the party, the guests were there, they were leaving, and everybody's looking at me like, how could you do this? Well, I was at a story, it was a Sunday afternoon, there was a barricaded gunman on the east side of Detroit. They had no one to relieve me. And I was like, guy, either come out, either something's got to happen here. Give yourself up or something. My kid's having a birthday. I want to go home. But that's the way it is in television, and it's a profession that I chose. But I knew that I didn't want to do that forever because covering fires and murders all the time can be pretty depressing. When I was a young neophyte reporter, I'd say, I want to cover the hard news. As I got older and more experienced, I'd say, send me to the circus. Let me do a story where I can laugh and smile and people are happy instead of people that are, crying and, oh, my baby's dead and all that. I just couldn't take it anymore. So I started doing PR, and I'd look at some of the press releases that would be sent to the stations, and some of the stuff was so poorly done. I said, I can do better than this. So I started doing a little PR on the side. It was mostly doctors and fashion. But then I started walking a fine line because if they would say, you want to go out and do such and such a story, I go, oh God, I have a PR client that's, and I'd have to reveal that. So pretty soon I was able to just kind of, slowly leave the business, and I've been doing PR ever since. What happens along the way is that you're doing your PR, my firm, Media Consultants. I started out doing everything in downtown Birmingham. I had almost every store on Woodward between Maple between Woodward and Southfield Road. I had probably 6 clients. They didn't know me. And the reason I was able to get them, they knew me from TV, so that helped. But I was not charging a lot. And most of them had PR, and they were wondering why I was so cheap. They didn't say that to me, but I knew they were wondering. And I was cheap because I didn't know any better, and I didn't want anybody to say no. And no one said no. And so I was collecting money. And I was doing a lot of public relations, going to those retailers and getting clothing and shoes and jewelry and all this stuff, taking it down to the Detroit Free Press, and we do the big layouts. At that time, they had 2 big fashion pages every Sunday. My son became Free Press and News. He was the house model for the news when he was a child. And everything just worked out for me. I was a very, very hard worker. I would be up late at night trying to, write a press release on what is this button made of and what kind of fabric is this, sitting on my living room floor, writing up everything. But that's how it evolved. And then I got a car dealer as a client, and that was Mel Farr, the late great superstar dealer. And then he says, why are you doing all this? And, I'm like, well, I'm hustling, I'm on TV. And I also started teaching at Southfield High School. I was running the radio station there Monday through Friday for 2 years, never missed a day of work, and working on Saturday and Sunday at Channel 7. I went down to part-time in TV, was teaching, and then did my PR. So I was helping Mel Farr because he said, well, I can now afford to have a public relations person, somebody to help me create better commercials, slow down his talking a little bit, put a little polish on that cake. And then he said, why don't you come work for me? I'm like, and quit television? Are you kidding? He was a good salesman. And I left, and I worked for him full time. He had 1 dealership at that time at 10 Mile and Greenfield in Oak Park, Mel Farr Ford. And when I finished my tenure with him, before he sold all of his dealerships, we had 15 dealerships in 6 states. So we would fly from one state to another, go down to Ohio, go to Texas, go to New Jersey, and I was doing all of the buying and the creative commercials for all of those dealerships. And I had a nice staff, and we had our own studio right over there in Ferndale. And so that's the end of that story. Good career. again, never stopped doing my PR. I've had media consultants for 30 years or something like that, and maybe longer. But off and on, I wouldn't do as much. But then I got a call from people here at Kevin Adele and his people, and they said, are you interested in doing a show? And I'm like, well, what kind of show? They said, well, come in, we'll talk about it. And I knew about the station, and I had been listening to it, and I'm like, wow, he's doing something really different, and having urban talk and all day long, one show after another, not just what we were accustomed to with one or two people having shows on one station. And after meeting with Kevin Adele and the station manager, Dodie Johnson, of course, Kevin is the owner of the Word Network, 910 and WADL. He said, we have 3 evening shows. What kind? I said, I don't want to work on the weekends because I do stuff on the weekend with my grandson and games. And he already had the daytime slots all filled. I said, one day a week is really good enough for me, and I want to do a business show. He said, good. Put it together. You got it. You want Wednesday or Thursday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? I said, I'll take Thursday night. Well, I forgot Scandal was on Thursday night and all of that. But there's always something competing. But I've enjoyed doing it. I started in January of 2016, Auto Show Week. And our first show, we combined it sort of with the Auto Show because 910 wasn't part of the Auto Show because it was a new station and we weren't allowed really in. So I went down to the Roberts Riverwalk Hotel, which was my client at the time, and I had Mr. Roberts on the air. We took our portable studio right downtown during the Auto Show Week, and we had Gregory Jackson, who was the president of Prestige Automotive. He is now the largest minority African-American car dealer in the country, and he came in, and we had a fantastic show. We talked about black entrepreneurship. We talked about cars. We talked about the whole automotive industry and what's happening in it. Why there are fewer black car dealers than there used to be. So it's fun. I really enjoy what I'm doing because it's a 2-hour time slot that I can just break loose. And all day, the other hosts some of them are so well versed in politics. They've worked in government and they know politics a lot better than I do. So I might dibble and dab in it just a little bit on the surface, but that's not my niche. I really like healthcare, and I love talking to entrepreneurs to find out what makes them tick. And I think it helps people. One of my favorite words is information. Information, and they even have a promo with me talking about you need information, because without information, you don't know what to do, where to go, who to call, how to get things done. You need information. And so we try to bring information to our listeners. And when I bring on an entrepreneur and they talk about how they got started, it helps somebody out there who may have an idea of their own. You don't always have to have a lot of money, but you need information. So if you want to know how, just tune in to Mind Your Business. And we have a lot of business people. I don't have all the answers, but I have people on the show who have a lot of information that they give out. So we've had everybody from sweet potato sensations. We have a florist coming in from Goodness Gracious on my next show. We've had clothing designers, restaurant owners. Don Studbrant from 1917 American Bistro is one of the primary sponsors of the show, along with Oakland Primary Health Services, which is a huge medical clinic, if you will, that services the underserved market. And I've had so many compliments and calls from people who did not have health insurance and thought they couldn't get health insurance, but they did once they called Oakland Primary Health Services. They were able to get insurance. They were able to go to the dentist, primary physician, and even see specialists. So that is what I call helping people. And that's what I'm all about right now.
All right, so some classic Detroiters different questions. If you had to rename Woodward after one Detroiter, who would it be and why?
Oh my gosh, rename Woodward. Young Boulevard.
Why?
The famous Coleman Young. I mean, people outside of Detroit know Coleman Young. That was a loaded question, but yeah.
All right, and also, if people want to get in contact with you, how do they go about that?
They can find me on Facebook, Charlene Mitchell-Rodgers. I don't use my married part of my name on the air. But if you look up Charlene Mitchell-Rodgers on Facebook with a D in Rogers, you'll see my Facebook page, my website. You can also get me through my website, www.getmediaconsultants.com. That's get, G-E-T, mediaconsultants.com.
All right, and the very last question. If you bring in any visitor from out of town, family, friend, or whatever, where's the first place you take them in Detroit so they can get an essence of it?
Would have to be the Detroit riverfront. I mean, I lived in Boston and I lived really close to the ocean. But when I lived on the ocean, when I looked out, all I saw was water. See, when you look out here, you see the water and you see Canada and you see Belle Isle. You see things. It's not just a big sea. As much as I like oceanfront, I think the Detroit riverfront is one of the most gorgeous places in this country. Just beautiful.
All right, thank you so much.